Representative Bartlett, do you have some questions?
I was born in 1926, and I grew up during the Depression. I've always lived on a farm. As a child, we had only horses on the farm, and then we moved to tractors. I worked as a kid on a farm. My kids worked on the farm. My grandkids work on the farm. I will tell you, there's nobody more concerned about the health and safety of these kids than their parents. There are two basic philosophies as to why we need regulations. One of them is that every provider, every manufacturer, every employer, and in this case, I guess you would include parents, are some combination of evil or greedy or stupid. And if you don't watch them and control them, they're going to take advantage of employees or consumers or children. And then there's a second premise for regulations, and that is that every consumer is incredibly stupid, and they're going to hurt themselves if we don't have a whole lot of regulations to prevent them from doing that. If you think about all the regulations that we have, they are formulated in response to one or both of those fundamental philosophies, which I reject, and I think the average American rejects those philosophies. If you want to be useful, please educate. You know, I had a fire on my farm, and some bureaucrat came and put a big thing on the door, "It's safe, you can't go in." Don't tell me I can't go in my building. Tell me you don't think it's safe for me to go in my building. I'm not an idiot. I'll be happy to have your education, but don't tell me what I can do in my building. I just have a fundamental problem with most of our regulations. You know, I don't want you to modify this regulation. I want you to withdraw the regulation. If you can't find useful things to do in educating our parents, then find something else to do, because I think what you're doing now is not a useful pursuit at all. Now, two of our kids, one of them now is a PhD, and the other one is a very successful builder. When they were little kids, and Carol Bertner wanted somebody to pick his corn, he couldn't find any city kids to do that because they were watching television and doing drugs and smoking and whatever else. Our kids were out there in the morning at sunup, going through these fields picking corn with long sleeves on, because you get the blades will cut your arms. Yep. They came in soaking wet from that. Long before your age of 14, they were lifting bales. Our bales aren't 80 pounds, so they could lift them about 40, 50 pounds, of the bales that we make with the kicker balers and so forth. And they were proud that some of the city kids that came to do this work couldn't do it in the heat of the summer. You know, farming is a whole different thing. I've lived on a farm all my life. I don't know why you're meddling here. You know, there's not a problem. You can find some anecdotal things. But, you know, as the old farmer says, the juice ought to be worth the squeezing. What you're doing here, the juice sure ain't going to be worth the squeezing. You know, can't you find something more productive to do than hassle our farmers?
I'd like to think that I'm protecting children.
You know, I will tell you that the parents are more interested in protecting children than you are. Why don't you just use your time educating so that they know the proper procedures and so forth?
Congressman, we do spend a significant amount of time providing educational assistance. Also, many of the things that you described, this regulation would not prohibit, certainly will not prohibit any work that you did on your parents' farm. It would not prohibit the kids from picking the corn. It would not prohibit the kids from bucking the hay. Like I said earlier, it only limits the most hazardous work that kids can do.
You don't think parents want to do that same thing?
Well, where this regulation has no impact on parents parenting their children.
How old does a child have to be before they can drive a tractor?
On their parents' farm?
Yeah.
0.
Okay.
They can drive the tractor on their parents' farm at any
My
age.
time is running out. I just have a real problem with our regulations, you know. We're struggling. Every 6 hours is another $1 billion debt. We're struggling with huge problems, and you're doing this? I just don't get it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.